Sure.
I imagine this is going to be fairly free-ranging.
It will be. We can talk about whatever you want to, and not talk about whatever you want to. Not want to.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think there are
There's any taboo?
any restrictions as far as I'm concerned. No. Did you see the album that Oscilloscope put out?
Did I see what?
See the album.
No.
Let me show it to you.
Yeah, please. Go ahead. It's okay. No problem. We haven't really started.
I want to put music on. Is that going to bother you? Yes. Because I don't have
Depends where. No, in the kitchen, you mean?
No.
I'm in my...
Try it.
It's okay. Soft music in the background. Are you going to play Gloria? Are you going to play some of that punk music that the kids listen to?
Punk music?
Yeah.
No, I
Hard rock and roll, hard stuff, the hard
think so. It's gonna
electric
be
guitars.
like Mozart, Beethoven kind
Oh, the hard stuff.
of.
No, that shouldn't be a problem. That doesn't. I don't think that'll be a problem being in the background. You know, I get all their stuff, so I'm hoping I can oscilloscope. I'm on their mailing list for all their. I haven't gotten that yet. Is it out?
Yeah.
I thought. What? I don't know why I didn't get a copy yet. Maybe they'll send me one.
I want you to open it up because that's the good part.
Oh, I see. Yeah, they do a nice job.
Don't they do a nice job?
They do. I have a lot of their stuff because I'm on their mailing list, but I'm supposed to get copies of everything. But it's funny I didn't get this yet.
Well, now you can complain,
Well, once I put you on there, then they better.
right? I mean, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, it is. It's really nice. I thought that. Wait, why didn't doesn't that who distributed the? It was Jake Perlin that distributed. Sit down. We can actually even just talk about it. Who distributed the? Did the BAM? Did you have the? You had the.
That wasn't a. Yes, he's my agent.
Oh, I see.
So he contacted them. He also.
He's your sales agent.
We're talking about Jake Perlin.
Jake Perlin, who, you know, is a friend of mine and was a camper of mine. I was a counselor of his in summer camp.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
So you're
that's fine, no problem.
older
Yeah.
than he by a few years.
I will take the fifth, Your Honor. Yes.
No, he arranges for these things, and he
Gotcha.
negotiated with Oscilloscope
Gotcha.
as well.
I see that. It makes sense, and you were there at the holiday party, the two of you.
Yes.
So it makes sense.
That's right. And am I close enough?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah?
Mhm.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So, yes, and so he arranged for the whole BAM thing, and he arranged for the later BAM shows,
Okay.
which included my next to latest film, which hasn't been distributed yet, Canners, which is about the people who pick up bottles and cans
Right. Okay.
in town for a nickel. And so he had them play that also, BAM.
Mhm.
And now BAM is thinking of doing other stuff and also repeating these programs, the Stations of the Elevated together with Claw, which is on this recent,
Okay.
both pieces are on this recent Oscilloscope
Right.
DVD.
Very good. Well, you know, as I said, I've covered a lot of their films, so I'm sure I can get myself a copy of Stations of the Elevated. Which means that if you're listening and you want to see Stations of the Elevated, after you listen to this conversation with filmmaker Manny Kircheimer, you can actually purchase a copy through whatever online
Amazon.
store. Amazon's an easy place to order.
Amazon, and there's a second disc in here that has
Mm-hmm.
4 other of my early.
Well, that's
films.
great. So you packaged them together. That's fantastic. I wish I'd gotten this beforehand. I should have taken the steps and gotten a copy beforehand. But it's okay. We can have a nice conversation.
And then after, just to give you a survey,
Yeah.
after Stations of the Elevated, I made, which probably, well, I don't know if it has a bigger constituency than Stations, but I made We Were So Beloved, about German Jewish refugees from Hitler who settled here, and then 4 other features, all of which are on DVD. All of which are being
They're all
distributed,
available.
except the latest one, Canners.
I got you. Wait, so those other films you said were made
Yes.
subsequent to Stations of the Elevated,
Yes.
and which was restored, correct? and reissued, I guess you could say. Did it ever? It never had when you finished it originally. What year did you shoot?
Stations?
Yeah,
1977.
77,
I finished it in 80.
In 80,
right? And then I went on to make these feature films.
Gotcha.
Which are sort of a different breed from the first 5, which are represented on the oscilloscope.
Okay, but Stations of the Elevator. Okay, did it ever have a theatrical? Then
no,
okay.
It didn't.
Did it play?
It played at the
New
York Film Festival.
It did. It was in the New York Film Festival in fall of 80.
1981.
Excuse me, fall of 81.
Yes.
And then it never quite got the distribution. Is that
it
the problem?
didn't. And it.
What a surprise for a kind of an experimental documentary like that.
Well,
there was an
after
underground scene, but maybe.
I mean, after all, the New York Film Festival did take it, and the reviewer of the time, who shall remain nameless, of the Times, there were 31 films that fall, and she reviewed 30.
Are you serious?
Yes.
She
did not review my film, so it died on the vine. However, graffiti people, word of mouth, bought it and traded it once it came out on VHS. And
who did that? The VHS?
2 people. The Museum of Modern Art and Rainbow, Bruce Ricker, who died 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Yes, he distributed jazz films, and because the track is a jazz track,
right.
He featured Mingus. Mingus was the big name. My name was in very small type.
Did Mingus give you, who of course would have been alive in the late 70s, did he?
No. He was, by the time I finished the film, by the time I was doing sound, which was all put in afterwards, back then, he was dead.
He was dead by
I
then.
was working off records.
Okay. And, but he died in the 70s, correct? Do you know?
I think he died in 78, 79.
Wow, just a
little too late.
But so how did you get the rights? Or did you?
Well, that's a long story. I didn't get the rights. Mm-hmm. What we did do is we gave his widow, Susan Mingus, we gave her $1 for every VHS we sold.
Oh.
That was the deal. It was a very simple one, right? Then, for this resurgence, Jake, the story goes like this. Jake calls me 3 years ago. I didn't know him.
Again, Jake Perlin. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And says, what's the status of Stations of the Elevated? I say, you want it? You can have it, but it doesn't have the music rights. And he says, oh, that shouldn't be a problem. And so a year and a half later, he acquired the rights to Mingus and to Aretha, who is on the track as well. So now everything is kosher with with that.
Wow. So he acquired the rights specifically for a soundtrack distribution or the
right.
score or the soundtrack of the film, but not in any broader sense. Because
well, yes. I had all the other rights, right? No, that is, I didn't have to pay the graffiti writers.
No, I guess what I meant. I'm sorry, getting back just to the Mingus and Aretha Franklin.
Yes,
tracks.
Both
that those belong to either like in the Aretha case, I guess it could have been Columbia Records or Atlantic.
In the case of Mingus, I believe it was Atlantic, Prestige, and Columbia.
But so they worked out some arrangement, in other words, for this, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's great that they.
Right.
Maybe things are changing a little bit, where they're actually human beings considering the context of what they're giving the rights to. Like if it's an IBM commercial, maybe there's a different approach to it than if it's a lovely art film that however many thousands of people are going to see it. And that the creators aren't standing to make a fortune off of this. That they should be looked at contextually, right?
Well, I guess you have to talk to
Jake,
because I had nothing to do with it.
Well, we have Jake in the room. It just so happens. Not quite.
Very funny. But who came to our rescue? Jake's outfit is a nonprofit.
Yeah.
and he works on fundraising and stuff like that. But who came to our rescue was Agnes B., the clothier,
Sure. Oh, right.
and she paid for the music rights.
Oh, how did...
Should I mention a sum? Or not?
I don't think
Better
there's
not.
anything... Okay, we don't...
Okay.
I don't think it matters. I mean, why don't you give like a rough... let's see, was it...
It's less than 100,000 and more than 20.
Okay. So wait, so it's less than 100,000, but more than 20,000.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess Jake would also maybe have to say how he made that happen too. But that must be an interesting...
Well, it took much too long. He hired someone. He's not going to hire that person again because the guy kept dilly-dallying. And he needed a great deal of prodding. And he was sort of the in-between, and he found a way to get the rights from Mrs. Mingus, from the record companies, and from the, BMI, I think.
Okay, the publisher maybe? Or
Yeah. So he was able to do that package. And the big surprise to me was Aretha. I had almost given up on her, but he got her apparently as easily as he got Mingus.
That's an incredible...
Money talks, yeah.
So I take it that Susan Mingus is also around?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
She manages the two bands, the two Mingus
Oh,
bands.
okay, very good. Was she a musician?
No, she was, I think, and I don't want to libel anybody, but I think she was originally a groupie,
Oh,
a very beautiful woman, and they married.
I see. Okay. Well, I just wondered if, like, to manage the bands, maybe, I guess that's more of a kind of a business
Yeah, it's
mind than it is administrative than it is musical, that makes sense. Well, it's terrific now that people have a chance. I saw it on a great screen. I saw it in BAM in their large room.
Yeah, in the Harvey.
So, yes. Well, no, I didn't see it at the Harvey. I saw it actually in the BAM during Cinema Fest. Yeah, but because I saw it at a press screening. Which they had in the upstairs at BAM in Theater 3,
right.
There, which is a great room because they just said it's a nice big,
Right.
really big screen.
Well, the Harvey, of course, has a gigantic screen.
Right. I have seen film in there as well, but that's where they did the public screening, right? Is that what you're saying?
They did.
Or did they do
that
the
was the
theatrical?
first one. That was the premiere.
Okay.
And they did it together with the actual band, with the live band.
Oh my gosh, what a great idea!
Yeah, who played the music from?
Oh, that's great.
The film.
Yeah, that's
Our
great.
original idea was Jake's original idea. Actually, was to eliminate the soundtrack.
Yes.
From the track and have them play to the film.
Yeah.
But that didn't work out. That was too
Aretha,
arduous.
I know she charges a few dimes and nickels, and Aretha Franklin would probably be a little bit out of the budget.
Well, no, we would have had to mix it.
Yeah.
We weren't going to get Aretha.
Right.
Besides, I think she was sick at the time. She
Yeah.
was just making a comeback.
I think you're right, timing-wise. So what you're saying is then since the 81, you made what number? Now you referred to them as features, like
Yes.
a handful of features, but that they're still nonfiction, though. Correct?
That's right.
Did you ever make a
one
narrative?
and it's on the DVD.
And is it a short? Or
it's 45 minutes.
Okay, I guess that's what you call sort of a mid-length.
Yes, and that's called Short Circuit.
Okay.
And Jake is eager to put that on tour.
Okay.
With another short film of mine. So that's in the works. And also, no, I shouldn't say this. Retrospectives are in the works, too.
Oh, well, you said it.
Well, no, but I was going to mention the places.
Oh, okay.
But I better not. It's two organizations, and I'd rather not mention
Oh, no problem. Not at all.
Right. Here's a plug. New movie theater is opening in town.
I know.
The Metrograph. And it's
a nice old-fashioned name.
Yes, it is. Jake Perlin is going to curate it.
I know.
And it's on Ludlow, on Ludlow, just off Canal.
Right.
Over across the street from the side of the gigantic Loeys Canal, which has been closed for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very promising because Jake's taste is wonderful, and he's going to play great stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, I encourage people to come out, and once that place opens.
Yeah, February 19th.
Oh, it's February 19th? Okay, very good. Well, there will be a theater for films of the avant-garde.
Yes.
Would you put some of your a good amount of your work in that category?
No.
Mm-hmm.
No, I really don't. My films, although, they're a little poetic or a little lyrical, you might say, those early films. I was working from the work of the masters in the 30s and the 20s. I didn't feel
you like Robert Flaherty? Who are you talking about?
No. Well, I'm talking about Leo Hurwitz.
Because I don't know a lot of those names.
I'm talking about
Go ahead. Yeah,
Willard Van Dyke. I'm talking about Joris Evans. You know those names.
I really don't. And
don't.
There's holes in my knowledge. I hope I'm not losing your respect, but I'm pretty transparent about my ignorance.
Well, we studied all those films in school. I went to City College, which had the first documentary film institute in America, led by Hans Richter,
that name I know.
The Dadaist painter who made what was called experimental films at the time. Dreams That Money Can Buy, 8x8, stuff like that. And he was one of the pioneers in the 20s, along with René Clair and some others who made these short experimental films. Anyway, it wasn't the experimental, dolly, that got to me so much as the good documentaries that I studied there. And these good documentaries were, the Grierson School in England, the Germans, the Russians, and so I was really carrying on what they had done. I didn't feel in my wildest film, which isn't very wild, Stations of the Elevated, that was avant-garde. No, what it was, and it wouldn't have been considered such,
right,
except that it came out at the same time. That was the heyday of cinema verite,
right,
and documentaries had shifted to that. My kind of documentary back then made shot films without sound, edited them montage style, and added the sound later. Right? And cinema verite, which, by the way, Leo Hurwitz also pioneered back in 1952 with a film called The Young Fighter. I can tell you that whole history. Cinema verite, in which the camera always records dialogue as it shoots. By 1977, when I was shooting Stations, was what you saw everywhere.
Right.
That was the documentary.
Pennebigers and the Maisels.
Right? And so anybody making it in the old style was different. And, for example, during that time, very few poetic-type films came out.
Right.
They were all very quotidian. It was the language that counted most, actually. And there was a sort of deterioration in picture quality for the longest time.
Sure. Oh, because now a handheld was coming.
And it was
vogue.
also handheld, and it often wasn't metered, and it zoomed back and forth to get focus.
Right.
Right on in the middle of a shot.
Sure. Well, because somebody may be saying something very important, and that was the key issue, not the way the film looked as much.
Right.
It took a back seat, in other words.
Now today, that was a transitional period, but that transition went on for 20, 25 years, and today those films are made much better. Although there is a good deal of hand-holding. We talk about the reality shows and so on, which don't care that much for picture quality. But documentaries themselves are better than they used to be. But they mostly use that method. And I'm a teacher, and I have students make films, and I ask them to turn off the
sound.
The sound when they're making it, so that they can make a story dependent on picture.
Where do you teach?
School of Visual Arts in New York.
Do you work out of the main campus area on East 23rd Street?
I teach production.
We'll be running into each other because I've been asked to do a number of things with the SVA in their film department.
Oh.
They want to do a screening series. And what they want to do is focus on conversations. They want to make it like more about the Q&A than they do the actual film. So, in other words, let's say a typical film series, it's about the film, and then you get a QA after. But this is really almost as much about the conversation and access to the filmmakers.
I see.
So that's the kind of the focus of this series.
In any case,
go ahead.
I don't. It's a very good question about my. I don't consider. I have nothing against avant-garde, but I just don't consider my films. I don't think that I
can see that. Yeah.
I don't think I've done something new. Avant-garde means you're doing something new.
Oh, true. I'm also looking at it, like, from my perspective, and I'm almost like kind of the avatar for the moviegoer, like kind of the devil's advocate here, that because what we do now is we have a difficulty knowing how to talk about films that don't fall into the more conventional documentary format. And so these kinds of other films, which I end up having to talk about a lot because they intrigue me, or the people that make them intrigue me, and then we call them, we have all sorts of names for it, and they seem to fall into this experimental bucket because we don't really have a better word for it that most people can hold on to and grab onto.
Yes, but even experimental means that it's new, right? It's being played with.
Right. It's exactly.
And it's being, and
true.
I don't feel that's my strength. I don't think I do things that are new. I think I utilize things that are old and do my best with them. Mm-hmm. I've been watching the Sherlock series. Mm-hmm. And have you seen any of those?
No, not yet.
Because I think that's new. Mm-hmm. I think that's experimental. New way of telling stories. Mm-hmm. Aspects of it, anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I understand exactly what you mean. And so how have you historically referred to your type of filmmaking?
Well,
if we have
my recent filmmaking, after I made this large film about the German Jewish refugees called We Were So Beloved, which was 2.5 hours long, that was a talk film, interview film. And although I don't like, I don't like to call it talking heads. I don't like that term. Mm-hmm. It's a sort of a denigrating term. This is anyway. Then my next film, Tall, which is about the growth of the American skyscraper, has a voiceover. I don't do any interviews in it, and I use montage to present the growth of the skyscraper.
I see.
Then the next film was Spray Masters, which is a follow-up to Stations of the Elevated, in which I actually do talk to 4 of the people, 3 guys.
The graffiti or taggers?
The graffiti writers.
Did you talk to Lee Quinones?
I did.
Okay.
He's in it, and Lady Pink is in it, Futura 2000, and Zephyr. And Zephyr and Lee has become a really good friend.
I think that's another connection to Charlie Ahern, we also were talking with.
That's
the other
how come I got to know him.
Yeah, sure.
Stuff
who
like
would
that.
who would be better for connecting you?
But I only met him about 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in France, when both our films played at a graffiti show. And then there was a film called Art is the Permanent Revolution, which is a talk and how-to film, right? Because the artists are working and we're watching them work, but they're also talking as they work. So, so I'm now those are mainstream films. And then I made Canners, and that's also talking, right? So when you say, how would you categorize your film?
Documentaries.
Yeah, I think, well, they're documentaries, but I think the first 4 out of the 5 that are on here, because one is fiction. The other 4, which were all made without dialogue, are what? They're lyrical.
Interesting. You have more descriptives than you would than kind of categories. You know, that works for me. Nonfiction,
Okay.
lyrical.
These are lyrical
Yeah,
films.
yeah.
Well, you know Stations. You know that one
Yes,
of mine.
yes,
That's a lyrical film.
true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although that doesn't even have voiceover.
No, right. It's exactly the way you described it earlier when you said it was shot, then cut, montage,
Yes.
and then sound was put in over afterwards in post with the Mingus music and
And the sound effects.
the and the trains,
sound
trains,
effects. A
which
lot of
plays a
sound
huge
effects.
effect. Yeah. So describe for those again who have not seen this film. It is the elevated subways of New York,
Covered with graffiti.
graffiti. Yeah,
Back
and
in 1977.
But which a train without graffiti would, if they existed, would have been an exception. Which
It
would have
does
been
not. It did not
a freak.
exist.
Yeah.
It did not exist at the time.
Yeah, they were very ambitious graffiti artists. It was their heyday because some of them would try to do like a full train in one night, and right. I mean, there were some cases where they're masterpieces, and
Masterpieces didn't mean it was good. It just meant it was
right.
It was a full car,
a full train, and then they would do like
not a full train, a full car.
Just one car.
Yeah.
But I know there were cases where they tried to do like
they
more
did 10 cars. They did a whole train.
Yeah.
That, as far as I know, that only happened once.
Okay, yeah, I think maybe
the
I've heard about
Fabulous Five, and Lee supervised that.
that. Okay,
Right.
yeah.
He had a number of pieces on it.
Fabulous Five.
Yes.
Is that Fab Five Freddy? Or is that something?
Well, he was part of it, I think.
He was. That's where he got his name.
I don't know.
It was good. I'm
I'm not a graffiti historian.
Okay,
you know?
we'll bring in some.
I don't know.
Well, maybe
that
I can get
much.
Lee on if he. I don't know if he does interviews, but we'll see. I'll talk to Charlie about him and about that.
Right.
But he also of course this all also played into his film, Charlie's film,
Star
Wild Style.
Charlie's is Wild Style.
Wild
right.
Style. Yeah. And so you grew up in New York. I
Yes.
take it, right? Did you
That's
grow up in the
correct.
Bronx, or did you grow up in?
No, Washington Heights.
Oh,
in
here.
Manhattan.
Okay, very good. It's Upper Manhattan. Well,
Totally
the
Manhattan.
Bronx is right across the river there. That's all.
That's right. The Bronx is across the river, and that's where Yankee Stadium is. And that's the only
Yes.
time we ever visited the Bronx, to go to Yankee Stadium.
Gotcha. Yeah, of course.
When we were kids.
And I grew up near Met Stadium, Shea Stadium.
Oh, well, I'm a
That's
Mets
where I was.
fan.
Okay. To this day, or just?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Yes, of course. I mean, I'm always glad if I guess if a New York team is winning, whatever. But I don't put quite. My heart's not in it as much as.
Oh.
There's a spirit to it, but my heart's really in it. If the Met, it's like this past year, the Mets were doing quite well.
Yes.
So that was fun to see. And so you grew up in Manhattan, in Washington Heights,
Correct.
and then did you know at what point? What were you planning on being? An artist, or did you have other ideas?
I thought I'd be a chemist, and I went to City College of New York, and a couple of whiffs of that chem lab told me, no, I don't really want to do this. But at the same time, in 1949, the students went out on strike against a racist professor and an anti-Semitic professor.
At the City College.
At City
Which
College.
is mind-boggling that could have happened because of
It
all
did.
those old Jews that came out of there.
That's
Or
right.
They started
That's
off as
right.
young Jews, of course.
And then the racist, name was Knickerbocker. It's no secret. He had it out for blacks. So anyway, school went out.
Mm-hmm.
And one kid with a small camera, Filmo, if that means anything to you, Bill and Howell Filmo, was shooting the scene, and I went over him. I said, well, who's this for? What are you doing this for? Film was expensive, you didn't see 16-millimeter cameras on the street. Mm-hmm. And he said, for the film department, I'm a film student. So I followed that up. I thought that intrigued me. And I visited...
He was shooting the protest. There was a protest.
Yeah, he was shooting the demonstration.
There was a demonstration about regarding Knickerbocker.
And,
so he was sort
Davis, Knickerbocker and Davis.
Oh, there
Those
were
were the two.
It predated the cell phone, camera phone
That's
by
right.
by a number of decades.
That's right. Actually, he was shooting the back of a horse shitting, A police horse.
Mm-hmm.
And so I approached him, and so then I made an appointment with Hans Richter, known as Professor Richter, at the school, to see what that was all about. My father had said, ask him if there are any opportunities in film before you decide on this. So I went up there. I went down there. He had a basement office in what was called Army Hall at the time, in an old Charles Adams type building. And I said, Professor Richter, are there any opportunities in film? And he said, yeah, opportunities, there are plenty, but no jobs. So that was cool. He was wrong. There were plenty of jobs, but very few opportunities, actually. And but we hit it off. We became we liked each other. I became his pet, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked for him right after I got out of school.
So the sort of protégés, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, we were both Germans. We were both refugees, Hans and I. And I worked for him for a while. He was making his second big American film, 8x8, and his documentary about chess called The Passionate Pastime. He originally called it Chess-cetera, which I thought was a much better title.
It's certainly funny.
That's right.
Yeah.
And well, so is Dreams That Money Can Buy, I mean, he had a terrific sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how come I got into film. Then I got a job after I graduated in the industry.
I see. Where were you born? You were born in Germany? Or
I was born in Germany.
You were?
Born in Saarbrücken, Germany. I was there for my first 5 years. But
and your parents were refugees?
They were refugees from Hitler.
Left. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they got out, obviously, in the nick of time.
They got out in the nick of time in 1936.
Thank God.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God. You're right about that.
And did they have they must have had a hard time of it. I mean,
yes and
by
no.
comparison.
Well, sure, anybody who has to emigrate. I mean, look at what the migrants today,
Sure.
They had a worse time. The Saar region where Saarbrücken is, which, by the way, in 2 weeks I'll be there for a film festival. They have the Max Ophuls Prize film festival every year. And they always invite me, and I take a program of student films from SVA.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Anyway, Saarbrücken is the capital of the Saar region. And the Saar region was administered by France under the League of Nations mandate after World War I. And in 1935, the League of Nations ran a plebiscite. What do you people want to do? You want to stay with France? You want to go to Germany? Or you want to just leave it the way it is? And they voted overwhelmingly to go over to Germany. And that's when my father made preparations to leave. He immediately lost his job once that voting came out. But he was able. He was the designer for a department store. Did all the interior designs and the exterior designs. They would run, 6-story advertising on the outside of the building.
Oh wow!
And he would design that, and so they fired him, but they kept him on because nobody could do the job as well as he. But he had to go through the back entrance and walk up the stairs to his office. So he accepted that humiliation for a year while he was planning to leave.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they moved here in 36, you said?
That's correct. They
Wow.
moved here in 36.
Okay. And they to Manhattan.
To Manhattan, to Marble Hill, 225th Street, where two of my dad's brothers already lived, and they got an apartment for us and everything.
Oh, they left earlier.
They had left earlier, not for the same reasons. They
I
had
see.
left for economic reasons, like in 1929, before Hitler.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that probably was a big help, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, my goodness. And so you, how old were you? You said
I was 5.
5 years old. So you don't have any memories before, although there's such a marked contrast. Maybe you have some vague or memories rather.
It's sort of individual
Yeah.
incidents. Yeah, a little bit
Sure.
of Germany, you mean?
Yeah.
And of the ship coming over. Yeah.
Even the ship.
Well, I saw my first film on the ship ever.
Was that true?
Marlene Dietrich film called Desire.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You actually remember that? Like,
well,
or
I
just
remember
go,
that
you remember
because
that
I thought first of all, I didn't want to go. I was scared.
Sure.
I was very scared because there was once, never mind, I was very scared to go to the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I did go there, I liked it so much that I laughed my head off and I had to be ejected because I was spoiling the mood for the
Right.
other audience.
What do you think? It was just the joy?
I don't know. I thought it was all so funny.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a funny film, Desire.
Wow, that's an incredible story. So you were 5 years old. So you were born in 31,
Yes.
I guess.
Yes, I'm 84 now.
Okay. Geez, you just, it sounds like you're not slowing down very much because you're traveling quite a bit and
And I'm working on
teaching,
3
you're working-
films at the moment, yeah. I'm just finish the editing of Joie Lee's film. Joie Lee is my friend and colleague from school, and she's the sister of Spike.
Oh,
And
she's,
she's,
yes, I know who she is. Yeah.
She's,
Yeah.
just...
I've seen her running around, like on her bike. And
Yeah,
stuff like
she's a wonderful person.
that. Is she?
And she turns out to be quite a talented director. And so I volunteered to cut this short. It's just 8 minutes. But she's doing a number of what she calls subway vignettes. And this is one of them. And it was fun editing it.
What's a subway vignette in this case? Like, is it a fiction film?
Yes,
or-
yes.
Okay.
These stories are fiction.
Mm-hmm.
This one is about 2 young women, one carrying trays of food and the other one carrying an 8-month-old baby,
Mm-hmm.
who don't have the money to go into the subway. They're standing outside the turnstile asking people for a swipe.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm.
And it turns out that then she comes running down the stairs. My friend Joie, she plays the lead role, Coco, and she doesn't have any money either.
Mm-hmm.
And when she tries to upgrade her card, put some money on it, there's nothing in her debit
Mhm.
at all.
Mm-hmm.
I won't spoil the story, but anyway, she goes in and the kids are left outside the turnstile, but eventually something happens.
Gotcha.
And
Well,
then-
as though, how are we going to see these things to be...
you know,
you know.
she's thinking of webcast.
That makes sense, right?
I don't know.
And let me
enough
ask you a
about
question now
Yeah.
that we're on the subject. You're editing. I have to imagine that she's shooting digitally, so you're just now editing on your computer?
it. For sure.
Yeah.
In the next room, I'll show it to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Digital is wonderful, by the
Yeah.
way.
Mhm.
I'm a great, great, great fan of digital.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad film is gone. And this has given extra years to my life. And I have arguments all the time with people about film
Maybe with
versus
Jake.
digital, including Jake.
Yeah.
Jake is a very big film man.
I imagine.
He's my good friend, but we fight about it all the time.
It's the irony there, because he's the young guy who
Yeah,
grew up in the
that's
age of
right.
digital, and yet you grew up in the age of
Film.
of celluloid, and yet
Yes, our roles are
But you
reversed.
understand the right, because as you get older, you realize this has allowed you to be a lot more creative in the moment and in a faster in terms of at least production.
Well, but also people put digital down as being
Inferior.
well, they say it's too beautiful, too even, too pixelated instead of grained, too. I don't know. They say all sorts of things, about but if you look and I think it's because they've seen lousy digital work.
Mhm.
Because if you look at, let's say, the BBC productions, if you look at Sherlock, if you look at Downton Abbey, it's the lighting. And you give it fabulous lighting, and the whole thing looks fabulous. And it's the story, the content, that counts.
Mhm.
And so I don't regret, I mean, some people I've talked to like grain. They like little scratches.
Yeah, I
and
understand
stuff
it.
like that.
I
I don't understand that at all.
Well, it is.
My whole life was
I have a couple
against grain. I just wrote a piece that I presented at a conference called "Against the Grain."
What a great title! Where did you write that? Or that was just presented?
It was just I just presented it downtown.
I see.
In October. Yeah, because I mean, when we were working in film, we tried all the time to hide the grain by using the slowest film. I mean, who needs grain?
What other secrets are there?
Secrets?
Well, trade secrets, which doesn't mean it's which most people don't know.
Oh, you mean because I said
like
hide?
hiding grain. Like
Well,
in other words, what are some of the techniques that
you needed? It meant you needed to light more because you were
Sure.
using slower film. Slower film produces
so more light to the
less
aperture,
grain.
right?
You had to, yeah, that's right. But you had to, yes. And now, digital is so remarkable. It can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you want, I favored reversal film, both in black and white and in color. And if you want that look today, well, you have it in front of you. You have the example. All you have to do is shoot digital and then go to After Effects and work on it until it looks like film. I'm not talking about the little film items that you get in your editing system. I'm talking about really creating
the Ken Burns effect. Trust me, I talked to Ken Burns
Forget
about
the Ken Burns effect. I mean,
Well,
first of all,
it's another
first
tool,
Of all,
that's all I'm saying.
No, this Ken Burns effect pisses me off on account of we've been doing that forever. And then he popularized it in, I think, the Civil War, and suddenly it became his. I mean, that kind of thing with the slow zoom and everything, we've been doing that ever since they invented zoom lenses.
A zoom in a pan is what we're referring to.
Yeah,
on a
well, a
picture or
zoom in a
whatever.
pan.
But
You
yeah.
want it, that zoom in a
what-
pan? I can show you
that-
early stuff.
But it's always the credit's always given to the one who popularizes it, and he just happened to be the right place at the right time.
But
and
I mean,
I brought it up and with him, and he kind of went into a tirade of sorts. He was rude, but he did because then Apple, who
included it,
makes
right.
it part of their palette of effects in their editing tools.
Perfectly right. Good for Apple, because he didn't invent the stuff. Just like what's her name? It'll come to me. But anyway,
is she a
a so-called experimental filmmaker?
Okay.
Amaya Deren.
okay?
Nothing experimental about what she does. It was done in the early 1920s. It's for people who don't know film who say things like that.
Sure. Well, that's most of us, but we give usually credit to the one that we connect with on some level. And a lot of
Well,
people
except
connect
that's self-promotion. You wouldn't have noticed that if it hadn't been promoted.
Fair enough. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a
I'm gonna tell
it's a filmmaking technique, for goodness sake.
Right.
I mean, most people don't notice edits who don't know about film.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Sure.
Right. And the idea is that there's two things. One is you try to hide them as a craftsperson.
Yeah.
On the other hand, also, we as viewers, we see it so often that
It's
our
part
brain,
of the language. It's grammar.
Yeah, right, and we don't.
It's
right.
grammar.
And so
Right.
we no longer we don't notice it anymore.
That's right.
Because we're trained that way.
We
There's
grew
certain
up with it.
habits,
It's like
yeah.
the language. I mean,
Yes,
when
right.
you're talking, there's the famous Moliere in one of his plays,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
in which he's told that
In French, by the way.
in French, he's told that I don't know how it goes exactly, but anyway, he's told that he's talking prose, which is a big revelation to him. He's been talking prose all his life, and so naming something suddenly makes you conscious of it.
Right, I see what you mean. Yes, right, of course. Just to get back to one earlier point we were talking about a couple of minutes ago regarding this love and loyalty to the grain, to the film,
Yes.
to the film, watching celluloid. I'm going to tell you that if you look at, I can tell you the exact age of people that have this feeling. There's an age range that's very specific, and it would be people who probably coming out of college at a particular year for like a period of, the years coming out of college film school, or where they were first exposed to film. And so it was their formative years as film goers, which was probably still in the early 80s, maybe tail end of 70s through into the 80s, before the age of digital. So they were first exposed to a certain type of film where they fell in love with film. And so they have a nostalgic and emotional attachment to the aesthetic of film. Going back maybe earlier, and somebody who was working with it from the beginning, or from rather going way back, maybe there's less of that same kind of attachment to it. And certainly kids that are coming up today, they weren't exposed to that. They don't have that relationship with film.
So there's a nostalgia element.
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
It's like, this is part of my experience when I fell in love with film, so I'm going to have a very deep affection for it. And so I think that those people that are real pro-film, and some of them are very famous filmmakers.
Yes.
Quentin Tarantino, as we know, because even Hateful Eight has first been in CinemaScope, for God's sake. And then there's
70 millimeter.
70 millimeter, right.
Yeah.
So that's like a statement. It's not even an aesthetic decision. He's making a statement. And then there was a handful of other guys like
Scorsese
for a while, but I think he works in digital too. Well, there's a small group of select filmmakers that are very attached to continuing.
Right.
And I think also P.T. Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, still works in film.
Well, you can still work in film. That's cool, especially if you have a big budget.
Right.
Then what's the big deal? But for the rest of us, digital is a godsend. Digital.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it because it's only cheaper and faster. I'm saying it because it's beautiful. The thing is, it's so good now that, as you know, it can shoot at nighttime. It can shoot in lighting like this perfectly well. And except lighting like this is not beautiful. But people do it. And so the film looks lousy. Okay?
He's editing himself now.
And and if they light it as they should, they should never rely on not lighting it. Never. Just like you, in setting up these microphones, Adam, don't rely on the microphone inside your recorder. It's the same thing. The microphone inside your recorder, if you put it here in the middle of the table, will record what we are talking about, but it will be very poor quality. And that's what shooting without lights in dark situations is also. So there's a lot of that going on, and it gives digital a bad name. But digital, of course, can be magnificent. And when it is, then the focus is on the content, where it always should be anyway.
Do you get into these debates with your students? I don't know what kind of teacher you are.
A little bit.
Maybe
not much. The students are a little shyer. But I think many of them come to film school just to learn film. And I think my bosses don't really want me to teach film now. And I think this will be the last year because the labs have left New York. And we have to send out for developing and printing. So I think I'm going to be teaching film for the last time. But, you're saying, well, you're a digital guy. How come you're teaching film? I'm teaching film so that they can shoot digitally better, so that they understand what an f-stop is, so that they can manually do the things that are automatic, like white balance, for which they need a filter nowadays if they're going to shoot outdoors.
For people listening, white balance is you shoot the first before you start shooting, you get a white. It gives you a perfect
white. Right, you adjust for color.
Okay.
You don't want there to be a blue or a pink
going
tint,
into it. Yeah.
Right. So, and It seems to me that that's best understood if they work a little bit with film. Focus can be automatic on these cameras. Exposure can be automatic on these digital cameras. F-stop is just a number, unless you know what's going on. And so that's why I'm teaching film. I'm not teaching film to show it in the movie theater, because it won't be anymore. It's a goner. Let's face it. Much as you might love film, it's going to be gone. And as a matter of fact, if digital had come out first, nobody would ever have thought of inventing film.
Well, that's a logic I haven't come across
cumbersome.
yet. Yeah. For sure. Well, that's amazing. Okay, so let's remind people again, Stations of the Elevated is now available on this DVD, along with a number of other shorter works by Manny Kircheimer.
Yes, it's distributed by Oscilloscope, and you can get it on Amazon.
Yeah. And is other work available?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Two of my films are available. Two of my films are available at First Run Features.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And
Seymour's operation.
That's right. Seymour Wishman's operation. And 3 of them are available at the Cinema Guild.
Oh, very good. They're great, too.
Yes. And these are individual DVD feature-length films.
Great. Well, I hope people search them out, as a result of listening, and we'll introduce some more new people to your work.
That would be wonderful.
And I'll keep people abreast of these retrospectives that we can expect.
Yes. Retrospectives and my film Canners, which is not yet distributed.
Right.
My agent is trying for a theatrical release for that film. It had already had a sneak preview at BAM. And it may be that BAM will show it
That'd be great.
over a longer period, but also...
How long is that film? What did you say the running time was?
77 minutes.
Oh, so that's
It's feature length.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And it follows people who collect and try to get their deposits on...
Yeah. You've seen them on the street.
Sure.
They have mountainous bags full of cans and bottles.
They're balancing these enormous bags of cans on these usually much smaller carts.
Yes.
Or whatever. Yeah.
And I'm interviewing 20 of them in the film. And their lives are better than you think. Yes, and furthermore, they're more interesting. They're not down and outers. They work very hard.
Oh, I can't imagine.
Yes, and many of them in the film are very interesting. So that's another, and I'm making some new ones. So there'll be more, I hope.
Well, you're an inspiration.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, it's great to see. I'm glad. It's great to see people that are, in their 80s still being extremely productive and hungry, and that's terrific.
You got to be lucky.
Yeah, well,
you got to be lucky to be healthy and to live this long and to have digital at your side. I've got my films. I have some devoted students who are really good friends who shoot for me. Students, from 20 years ago, who shoot, and so I'm able to make a film if there are no rights involved. I'm able to make a film, feature-length film documentary for $5,000.
It's really, it's just, you couldn't even conceive of such a thing, 20 years ago.
That's right. And I pay my people in dinners, breakfasts, and occasional gifts, usually art books, usually old ones that I've found on eBay that are goodies. Yeah. Yeah. Just gave away a beautiful Blake book, beautifully printed about the Book of Job. And actually, my main cameraman, Zachary Allspaw, who lives out on the coast, is studying for the priesthood, if you can believe it.
Really? So Blake,
Yeah.
Blake would be right up his alley.
Blake will be right up his alley. He's a wonderful man, and he's not totally decided, but he's given 2 years to, it's a 7-year course of study to become a priest.
Yeah, right.
I didn't know
Divinity
that.
school.
I'm telling you, very arduous, a lot of philosophy and stuff.
Sure.
And so, and a lot of practical work. That's what he's doing out there. But he comes in when I have a film to shoot. He's very devoted, and we like working with each other.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for sitting and taking all this time. I appreciate it, considering it sounds like you're real busy.
Yeah, this is a very pleasant vacation.
Oh, good. Right, and
But-
it is coming to an end.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you very much, Adam, for coming up here.
Thank you.